people are going live there. All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan Torah. Amen. Okay. So we're in Matthew, finishing off the Sermon on the Mount. So go to Matthew 7. If I remember correctly, everything we finished up to chapter 7. Alright, so just to give a quick recap, the Sermon on the Mount is the first big sermon in the book of Matthew, talking about kingdom servants. He starts talking about the blessed, poor in spirit, those who mourn, those who are meek, thirst for righteousness, who show mercy, who are pure in heart, those who make peace, and those who are persecuted because they pursue righteousness. He goes on to talk about him establishing and upholding the word, and challenges the interpretation of the guys. He said, "You've heard it said, but I tell you, it's a heart condition problem." Brings it all the way through to Acts of Tzedakah, and then we went into the prayer, the disciples' prayer, if we can call it that, and where Yeshua gave us a framework to pray. And last week we put that framework into the Ten Commandments, and he carried on talking about forgiveness, mammon, and he says, "Don't worry, don't be anxious about anything," and then he's going to lead you straight into chapter 7. All right, so with each of these items that he addresses, just remind yourself that these are points that we have to obviously address. What does that mean to me? How then do I become a kingdom servant? How then do I do this as a disciple of Christ? How did he do it so that when those things happen to him, how did he respond? And that has to become our response. Okay? So he carries on talking about troubles at the end of chapter 6, and he goes 7 verse 1. Don't judge so that you won't be judged. For the way you judge others is how you will be judged. The measure in which you will measure out will be used to measure you. Now let's pause there for a second. How many times do you think us as believers are not allowed to, or this verse is thrown out of context when they say you're not allowed to judge anybody? You think that's quite possible? One of the most misused ideas in Christianity. All right? How do we know this is not right? That Yeshua is talking about something else. Otherwise, he would be contradicting God's word. All right.
So is this not where you shouldn't be judging non-believers because they wouldn't know anyway? But where we in the body, if you've gone through it, it's not judgment as in like damnation, but it's judgment as in guiding and correcting in love.
When you look at it, the question is, should we judge or shouldn't we, according to what God's standard is? Now, whether we're looking at the world and saying you need guidance, or whether we're looking at people within the body who need guidance, either way, I'm looking at a situation and comparing it to something. Now, he gives us a bit of a hint in the statement. He says, the measure in which you measure will be used to measure you. All right. But we have to go back and we test everything against what was previously stated. Go quickly with me to Deuteronomy 1, verse 16. We're going to jump around a little bit. Deuteronomy 1, verse 16. Says, at the time I commission your judges, hear the cases that arise between you and your brothers, and judge fairly between a man and his brother and a foreigner who is with them. So here in Deuteronomy, there were judges put in place to do that very thing, was to judge, right? Correct?
Yes.
Go to Leviticus 19, verse 15. I'll write these out for you in a minute. 19, verse 15. says, do not be unjust in judging, show neither partiality to the poor, nor deference to the mighty, but with justice judge your neighbor. Okay? So we've got two instances within Torah that tells us we have to judge rightly. Everybody agree? Okay, I threw in a prophet there. If we can find Zechariah chapter 8 verse 16. Look at that.
Chapter 8.
Verse 16.
Which one's that?
Zechariah. Okay, it says, these are the things you are to do. Speak the truth to each other in your courts, administer justice that is true and conducive to peace. Don't plot harm against each other and don't love perjury, for these are the things I hate, says Adonai. So Zechariah says, again, he reiterates what we see we need to do according to justice. How about Yeshua's own words again? Go to John 7. John 7, verse 24. Okay. Yeshua looks at it and he's busy rebuking as usual. And he says, stop judging by surface appearances and judge the right way. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? What is the right way? Some of the Yerushalayim people said, isn't this the man they're out to kill? Yet here he is speaking openly, and they don't say anything to him. It couldn't be, could it, that the authorities have actually concluded he's the Messiah. Right? What does it mean to judge the right way? According to Torah. Right? So that, can we then look at Matthew 7 in a slightly different light? Because if he says don't judge, if this is only about judgment, it can't just be don't in fullness, because Torah says we have to act righteously and judge according to his Torah, so that we're using his standards. And that's the ultimate key here, is that we've got different people judging according to what they perceive to be correct. If I'm a Pharisee and you're not a Pharisee, according to what I believe, you're failing. But does that line up with Torah? In some cases, yes, but most not, because I'm looking at Pharisaical traditions and I'm saying, well, you don't do this the way we do it according to tradition, and the rest of the people are saying, but show me that in Torah. And then all of a sudden we've got different standards of being held up by different people. Now, what happens if it's only the perception? If this is perception-based, what's the problem with that?
Well, it's judged according to standard of man, if it's perception.
Right.
So it's always go back to the rule, which is in Torah, God.
Okay, so we have your truth, my truth, and their truth. Okay? Your version, my version, and God's version. Which one is more likely to be correct? God's version. So then if I look at his precepts and I say, no matter what, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, and I'm judging according to what he has said, I am not the judge, he is. He's looking at people and he's saying, you don't be the judge because you're using your own ideas. If we understand that God is the judge and God is the one establishing his Torah, and at the end of the day, can anyone deny the fact that it says the measure in which you will measure out will be used to measure you? What yardstick is God going to use at the end of it all? Right. He's going to look at you and he's going to go, did you murder? Did you steal? Did you commit adultery? Well, there's punishment, sin equals death. So how do you want to pay? And you're either going to be hiding behind Messiah and saying he paid the price for you, or you're going to take your chances and go, no, I wasn't such a bad person. Now, he's correcting people here that have forgotten that it is strictly his viewpoint that makes. That is the final say. All right? So when you hear don't judge so you won't be judged, we have time and time in scripture that it says we must use righteous judgments. There is a book called Shoftim, Judges. What did they do? Judge, or no? Right? There's a parasha called Shoftim. When the judges were elected, the Sanhedrin was put in place. What do you think they did? What did Moses do? Day and night until Jethro told him, listen, I think you need to split this a little bit because there's a bit much for you here. He sat listening to case after case after case after case, judging who gets what, and half of Torah is about that. What happens with your brother? What happens with your neighbor? What happens with your ox? What happens with this? What happens with that? We get here and we pick up this word and we never understand it in the context of what it is written. And he's talking about, it's not about, wow, my idea, but it's about God's idea. This is the most important. If I'm using Torah, I'm not judging, I'm saying your creator said we shouldn't do this and this is why. If you have an issue with that, you've got an issue with your creator, nothing less. All right? Everybody understand? You guys want me to write those verses down quickly? Okay. So, we have John 7, verse 24. We have Leviticus 19, verse 15. Deuteronomy 1, verse 16. We have Zechariah 8, verse 16. He's telling me to do exactly the opposite. All right. So, we need to understand. Verse 3, it says, why do you see the splinter in your brother's eye but not notice the log in your own? Now, that's a very blatant statement. So, for you to be a judge, is there certain criteria that you have to adhere to as a leader, as someone who understands Torah? So do you think, are they more likely, should they have the splinter maybe in their eye and the other people the log? Are they going to be completely perfect?
No.
Probably not. They're probably going to muck up a little bit here and there. They're probably going to have bad days once in a lifetime at least, and they're probably going to be human. But if I'm the one that's looking at the people and I'm saying, hey, you need to get X, Y, and Z, and he's saying, you have the log, what is my duty first? Right. So if I look in a mirror and I see a log in my eye, do you think I should get rid of it? So if I look in Torah, as I'm studying Torah, I'm doing self-examination. So Torah is a lamp unto the feet, right? Well, James says it's like looking into a mirror. If I look into a mirror, according to James, and I walk away and I don't change, the mirror means nothing. But if I look into the mirror and I see my face that's all covered in chocolate sprinkles and all the rest of it, and I go, oh, we've got a mess to do, I have to clean up X, Y, and Z, then I can go out and I can address whatever. Part of the big problem here is that they refuse to acknowledge their own sin before they judge others. Listen up, church. You get to the place where if you're so busy looking at other people and telling them where they aren't, and you're not looking at yourself, you've missed the point. You have no right to examine anybody else until you get yourself sorted. Didn't Yeshua say, you who without sin cast the first stone? So if you've got this all figured out, and you who are standing there righteously, and you can say honestly, listen, I've had to battle with this, I've had to struggle with this, let me help you and show you, not just condemning the person, because it makes you feel more self-righteous. We have jobs to do. And even when Yeshua was busy showing up people's hypocrisy, he was inviting them to make teshuvah. He was inviting them to fix up. He was inviting them to get into this process of, listen, I can see it. It's as plain as mud on your face. How do you not see what you're doing? And he says, when they acknowledge where they are, he says, go and sin no more. Says, if this is a stumbling block for you, deal with it. Ask God to help you deal with it. How much more so if we have the Ruach HaKodesh? If God shows something ugly in you, that's the time when you take the ugly and you acknowledge it for what it is. If I've got sin, if I'm broken, if I need help, that is not to shame me, that's to build me. What am I supposed to do with it? Vanessa, what do I do with my ugly? No, you can't fix you. If you could, Yeshua wouldn't have had to die.
Yeah.
Give it to God. And what do I say? That's not you, but it is you. Okay, and what's your heart's desire? When you climbed into the water, did you need fixing? Because you had everything figured out, or did you because you needed help? Right. So when you got up and you found something inside of you and you realized it wasn't what you were or were meant to be, but you realized it is you and part of you is broken, would you say it be correct? Like on Yom Kippur, we would go up to God and we would say, I really need you to take this away. Right. And as we start to acknowledge sin for what it is, anger, resentment, brokenness, whatever it is, whatever damage that has been caused over the time, because as God deals with you, he starts to get deeper and deeper and deeper into the roots. How many of you are dealing with things that were so much bigger now than the stuff in the beginning of your walk that he got you to deal with? All of a sudden, he's trying to get behind the heart condition. He's trying to get right into the back of your thought closet. He's trying to get you to look back at things that cause stumbling blocks that you didn't even know were a problem, but now you're starting to see it for what it is. And he's looking at you and he's saying, okay, maybe there's a splinter. You got past the log scenario. We're not that big anymore, but what we're dealing with is this. Let's ask something silly. If someone was blind, would you ask them to help take out a splinter in your finger? No. So what does it mean when you have a log in your eye?
You can't see sunrise.
Yeah, your perception is good. Okay, I know you can see the board there. You can read it clearly. All right, so this is my sin, and this is what sin slowly does. And yeah, please read the board. But you need to correct this. What happens if I spell something wrong? We've got problems. So what we need to do is we need to deal with the log and make it smaller. Now can you see the board? Right. Sometimes we're so busy looking at our problems, we can't judge clearly. Sometimes we're dealing with our emotional response. Sometimes we're looking at all these issues that it starts to cloud our judgment. It starts to break down our vision. And all we see is hurt and we don't see the issue. We don't see the splinter. How many of you had a splinter in your finger or you had a thorn in your toe that you've left for a while and it started to swell a little bit? Everybody's kind of had that, right? And then you realize there's only one way to get it fixed.
Pull it out.
Yeah, but every time you touch it, it's sore. But to get it out now, that's where the fun part is. That's normally when you go to mommy or your wife and then you start to flinch and don't know what she's going, is this going to hurt? And she has to open it up first so that you can get to the splinter. Guys, we need to get to the place where we want God to deal with our splinters. You did the big stuff. He's done that miraculously through you. He's helped you get to a place where you can trust him. But remember, sometimes people are still busy dealing with their logs. Don't think that you've arrived yet. Things that I'm still busy struggling with, someone else might have conquered. But at the same time, I'm not arrogant enough in my walk to sit down and say, like I have this all figured out. Guys, I'm not going to let you down. I promise I'm probably going to do it. Not because I want to let you down, but because I'm human. And as much as I'm aiming for Abba and I'm asking him to flow through me so that I don't get it wrong, everybody knows me well enough. I've probably misquoted something once or twice. I've probably wrote it skewed once or twice. And I've probably gotten things wrong once or twice before. God never gets it wrong. So as long as I'm seeing it from his perspective, then I can judge righteously. Understand? All right, happy day. So, where are we? All right, verse 5, right? Okay, verse 4. How can you say to your brother, let me take the splinter out of your eye when you have the log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, then you will see clearly, so you can remove the splinter from your brother's eye. So to be able to judge correctly, I need to deal with myself, so then I can help my brother. You get the principle? Okay. Don't give, okay, verse 6, slightly different principle. Don't give to dogs what is holy, and don't throw pearls to the pigs. If you do, they will trample on them under their feet and turn and attack you. Well, that's nice. So he gives us another little interesting image. Talks about dogs, pigs, and pearls. What's he talking about?
The dogs that couldn't figure out, but the pearls is not wisdom.
Okay. So let's use, let me cheat a little bit. Go to Matthew 13, verse 45. So we're going to jump ahead and let Yeshua define some of these things for us. Okay, I'm going to read from 44. The kingdom of heaven, remember this is a kingdom of heaven servant, is like a treasure hidden in a field. A man found it, hid it again, then in great joy he went and sold everything he owned and bought the field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant on the lookout for fine pearls. On finding one very valuable pearl, he went away, sold everything he owned and he bought it. So, if we're going to follow his definition, pearls, the kingdom of heaven. So you can attach that to kingdom wisdom, understanding, something that is going to reflect God in his fullness. Okay? So let's look at, go to Matthew 15. 15 was, the pearls were Matthew 13, verse 45. Now you go to Matthew 15, verses 21. Okay. From 21, Yeshua left that place and went off into the region of Tzor in Sidon and Sidon. Tzor and Sidon, Phoenicia, Gentile place. Okay. A woman from Canaan who was living there came to him pleading, "Sir, have pity on me, son of David." This is some very powerful statements. Sir in the Greek is kurios. Why is that important? It's the same word they use for Lord. Okay? Son of David. Okay? My daughter is cruelly held under the power of demons, but Yeshua did not say a word to her. Then his Talmidim came to him and urged him, "Send her away because she's following us and keep pestering us with her crying." That's very compassionate, don't you think? Why are they not feeling compassionate? Because she's a Gentile. What does the Messiah come to do according to the Jews? To reign, to lift up Israel, to establish himself in their kingdom, and the nations will come up and serve them. Now, hang on a minute. You know, we have some verses that back them up. But at the same time, they're missing something. For God so loved the world. There's no love in their statement, and he forgets that Abba is the father of all creation. What does the Goyim mean? Generally, it means nations, but came to be known as someone who's out of covenant, someone who doesn't have God. So now, when someone in Israel calls you a goy, generally it's not a nice term, right? So they're looking at them like, just send her away, it's done. He said, "I was sent here to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came, fell at her feet, and she said, "Sir, help me." He answered, "It is not right to give children's food and toss it to their pet dogs." Well, that's nice. That's a nice, strong statement. Apparently, Gentiles equal dogs. Now, why would Messiah call a Gentile a dog? In a Jewish mindset, is a dog a clean or an unclean animal? Unclean. He said, you guys are unclean. You're sitting here with idols. You're sitting here with pagans. You don't understand the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. You don't understand covenant. You don't want Shabbat, but you want the Messiah of Israel to do something. It's not that he's being derogatory and sitting here and says, please with Sakon. He said, very Jewish understanding. He says, look, you're unclean. Listen to her response. She said, true, sir, but even the dogs eat the leftovers from the fall of their master's table. There's something very profound there. There wasn't it in the blessing of Abraham that there would be, whoever blesses Israel will be blessed? Wouldn't Israel become, and the seed become a blessing for all the nations? So it says, even the offshoot of the blessing of Israel will overlap to the Gentiles. And he says, Yeshua answered her, says, lady, you're a person of great trust. Let your desire be granted. And her daughter was healed at that very moment. She understood who he was. She understood the power that was going on. She understood what was going on with her daughter. Does that someone who's got something in their eye? You think she was seeing it clearly? Even more than the Jews in Israel did she understand. Okay? So for dogs, we have Matthew 15. Matthew 15 means Gentiles. This is Matthew 13. Pigs. What nice New Testament image do we have? Go to Mark 5. This is going to come up again later, if we get that far. Let's talk about the pigs. Mark 5 verse 1, Yeshua and the Talmidim arrived at the other side of the lake in the Gazarenes territory. And you guys know the story. It was the guy who was living in the burial caves. Excuse me. And he was chained and he snapped the chains and he was demon possessed, otherwise known as Legion. Where did the demons go? Into pigs. Now, why is that a problem again? What is he trying to get them? It's again about the Gentiles. It's about uncleanliness. Demons, unclean or unclean? Not kosher. Definitely not. So now he's addressing them. So listen to it again when you hear this. He says, don't give to the Gentiles what is holy, and don't throw your wisdom or kingdom wisdom to the Gentiles. If you do, they may trample them under feet, and then they turn and attack you. Isn't that interesting? Can we see that somewhere in the New Testament where Yeshua shared a bit of truth with a Gentile and got him dead? Yeah, didn't he have a little discussions with Pontius Pilate? And Pontius was like, he says, you have spoken the truth. Pontius says, what is truth? Let me philosophize this bad boy down for you. I too am educated. Don't come here with your Jewish mindset. And even then, he would not understand. And he says, look, guys, there's a point that is something that's holy and precious to God. Don't just fling it around for people to trample on. How many of you have ever got into a discussion with somebody that wasn't a discussion, that was an attack?
Even a fellow believer.
Even a fellow believer. Right? Sadly enough, it comes worse off from the fellow believers. But even if you go to people who don't know the Bible at all, they would rather lynch you than listen to you. And the more you tell them about God's love and the crucifixion, and the more about this, the more angry they get. You give them truths that God has revealed to you in His Word, and it's so beautiful and so lovely, and all they can say is you're stupid and naive.
It's going to be draining as well.
Right?
Those conversations are extremely draining.
Exactly.
That's the life of it.
He says, once you recognize it for what it is, don't waste your time. You cannot take something that you have given up your entire fortune, your entire life to go and buy. This discipleship, this precious thing, and it's not going to make sense to you. It says, guys, it's holy, it makes you holy, it sets you apart. Own it for what it is. Give them little crumbs if they ask. Spread the seed, but don't take the whole pearl and give it to them and say, look how beautiful this is for them to try. Nobody. Everybody understand? Okay. Verse 7, he says, keep asking and it will be given to you. Keep seeking and you'll find. Keep knocking and the door will be open to you. Now, hang on a second. In chapter 6, did he not say anything about this? Seek ye first the kingdom and its righteousness. Does he not also have a mention somewhere on the sermon that don't carry on talking like the Babel of the Gentiles? Where there's surely the amount of words is going to get you heard. So, seek, knock. You're going to get what you're seeking, but only in what context? Listen to the rest of it. It says, we have people that sadly understand this to mean if I keep on asking and I nag him enough, he's going to give it to me. Listen to me. You're not going to outclaim or out-nag God. If he doesn't want to give it to you, you can go through your entire lifetime and not get what you request. Some of us need to say thank you, Abba, for that. Because that one thing that you want, that you think is going to save you, or well, the one thing that you need right now could be the very thing that's going to kill you. Abba, I really need a, let's be ridiculous, a 911. And I ask him every day for a 911. And then if I give him a 911, what do you think he's going to do with it? Crash? If you're lucky. Or you could spend the rest of your time in jail. What happens? God forbid. Chas v'chalila. You drive recklessly, you hit someone else, you wipe out an entire family, and you survive. Oh, but yes, don't worry. Allah gives you whatever you want. That's not what he's saying, and listen carefully. For everyone who keeps asking receives, he who keeps seeking finds, and to him who keeps on knocking, the door will be opened. If anyone here, if his son asks him for a loaf of bread, will give him a stone. Or if he asks for a fish, he will give him a snake. So if you, even though you are bad, know how to give your children good gifts, or gifts that are good, how much more will your Father in heaven keep giving good things to those asking him? The key thing is, it is a good thing. Good. It's about righteousness. Keep seeking the kingdom. Ask for the gifts of the Spirit. Keep asking for His will to be done in your life. Those are things that He will honor. Father, your will be done, not mine. Father, if there's anything in me that needs to be cut loose, that's holding me back, Abba, please deal with it. And if I don't see victory today, Abba, I'm going to ask you again tomorrow. Abba, put the pieces back together. Heal the hurts. Help me change so that I can better reflect Messiah. Does that sound like a prayer that your Heavenly Father would honor? Right. But if I keep on whining about money, about stuff, about mammon, about revenge, about gifts that are not going to be good for me, how many of us pray for, you pray for someone? Abba, if you could, it makes me, you gotta love God's patience. Jacob does a lot of negotiating, right? Do you think if Abba did not have a covenant with Abraham and Yitzhak, he would have allowed Jacob to sit down and say, look, if you do X, Y, and Z, and you do this and this and this, and you do that and that and that, you're going to give me all my heart's desires and give me safe, and I'll decide if you will. I said, and I smiled. What does that sound like to you? Does it sound like an immature believer or a mature believer? There's someone who doesn't know who they're talking to. But if we focus on God and we look at Him and we say, Abba, your will be done, what does that mean for me? That I will trust Him to give me what I need to be able to deal with what I need to do on His journey, not mine. The thing is, if we're walking alongside him, if we're following him, trust him that he will take care of whatever you need right now. There's a song that talks about this. What song am I thinking of? Psalm. Yeah, the Lord is my shepherd. Right? Every single minute, every hour, everything is accounted for, and God will take care of you according to His will and purpose for your life. Can you trust Him to do that? Will you trust Him to do that? We're going to talk about faithfulness later. It's something that I feel God's been pressing the last couple of days. We need to just get into this thing. He uses interesting reference here. He says, just to explain something further, he's using an imagery that they would understand. How many of you got confused about a loaf of bread versus stone or a fish versus snake? I mean, those are kind of things you don't get in a bakery, right? Would you like a loaf of bread or a stone? Eh? Okay, when you bake on coals, when you bake on that sort of thing, you pick up using open fires. They use something called a dragnet in fishing. There's a couple of different types of way of fishing. The dragnet, they would pull out and then they would make like a big circle near something shallow, and then they would come and drag everything in together. And in that net, as they would start to pull everything up, because it's been dragging from the bottom floor, what do you think they're going to find in it? Are all the fish going to be kosher? No, we're going to pick up stones and we're going to pick up snakes from time to time. You're looking for a fish, whoops. Okay, we need to get rid of that thing. Don't worry, we'll take care of your food. He goes in time and time again and he says, look, I'll take care of your needs, but sometimes you have to search your heart. Sometimes it's your heart condition that has to change because you don't have the faith or you don't trust Him enough to be able to give you what He wants you to have, not what you want to have. How many of you have had to learn over time to surrender people, things, your companies, your jobs, yourself? Where He gets you to the point where you realize you cannot even move until He says, move. How many of you have had to let go of friends and family? Right? How many of you had to let go of your own way versus His way? How many of you have seen the benefits of trusting God? Elaine? All right, there's 3 of us here. There's 4, there's 5. Yeah, there's many. So can I trust Him enough with the things that I need right now, and the people I need in my life right now, and the gifts He's going to give me later, that I will trust in His timing and His purpose and His plan instead of what I want and I see with my eyes? Yes? Can we?
Yes.
Oh, yo.
Is
Abba, why are you talking to me like this?
Is it also a question of I don't really have to see? I mean, as part of giving, with my recent experience, as part of giving it all,
Yeah.
and that surrenders. I don't even have to be revealed to me. I just trust that when it gets there, it'll get.
Right. Now that's the whole thing about faith. But He's building in a place and He says, look guys, if you who are bad, you generally muck up, you generally break things, you generally do that. God doesn't do this. And He says, if you guys can understand the difference between good and bad, why do you think your Father doesn't?
Yeah.
Why do you want to throw tantrums when He doesn't give it to you? Maybe you should stop and asking, hang on a second, Abba, what are you protecting me from? You see, the whole thing about Abba is that He loves you enough to say no. That doesn't mean you get to throw Him out with the bathwater. Maybe you should check your heart condition before. And I say that out of love because I've been through this a few times. Okay? So, talks about what you ask for. Okay? Verse 12. Next principle. Always treat others as you would like them to treat you. That sums up the teaching in the Torah and the prophets. Remember we said time and time again about Hillel and Shammai, but make me a proselyte, convert me, and teach me the entire Torah while I'm standing on one leg. Right? Shammai wants to beat him, and Hillel stands on one leg, and he says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Yeah? It's basically, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, and the second commandment is, love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's a principle that hangs everything. Remember when we broke down in last chapter? There are 6 commandments that deal with what? The first 4 deal with him and our relationship with him, and the other 6 deals with how we deal with each other. So he brings it back to, he says, look guys, we're dealing with what you've been dealing with when God is giving you things, and yeah, he says to you again, he says, listen, if you would like to be mistreat people. But if you would like to be loved, love. And that sometimes doesn't make sense, does it? Why? Because it depends on what you're sowing. But remember, don't just love according to the way you want to be loved. Love in a way that according to the way God wants to be loved. And the way God has set a standard. So tell me them, with John in your rearview mirror for the most part of the 2 epistles on Saturday, what is love? Love is following his mitzvot, right? That's how I love God. So, and what is our version? What is our clear-cut picture? Messiah. And how did he love? He did, and?
Sacrificing himself.
Yeah, there is no greater love for those who lay down their lives for others. Right? Paraphrase version. But what does that mean? How many of you would consider the fact that you, by laying down your life, will allow God to use you to lead others?
Put others first before himself.
Right. And if we understand God's heart and we understand the kingdom is about establishing him and setting captives free. So by you training up to become a disciple, laying down your life, walking after him, loving him, following his mitzvot, with everything you have, focusing on him, then you will be able to show others how to do the same, yes? Amen? As we grow, it says everything about Torah, the prophets all hinge on this. Doesn't Paul say, you know what, you can talk to angels, but if you don't have love, it's nothing. So, talks about loving your neighbor as you love yourself. He says, honor your parents. He says, we need to respect our leaders. He says, above all, love God with everything you have. If your leaders are worthy of respect, it's because they're teaching you Torah. If they're living it out, if they're walking with you. Your parents are honored because they're walking in Torah. Sometimes we have to check our heart condition. Okay, so he brings in Leviticus. This is Leviticus 19. 19 verse 18. And I didn't write the other one here. So your neighbor. Seek, knock, ask. Good things and righteousness, okay? All right, where are we? So from there, he goes to the obvious next thing. Verse 13, he says, go through the narrow gate, for the gate that leads to destruction is wide and the road broad, and many travel it. But it is a narrow gate and it's a hard road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Well, that's lovely. So we started to look at this thing, and I thought, you know what? What is this narrow way or narrow gate and broad gate? Do we have anything else in Scripture that talks about this? So it led me on a hamster trail about studying a whole bunch of things about gates, and a lot of them have to do with Revelations and city gates and how to get in and all of these interesting things. But I found something interesting in Isaiah. Go with me to Isaiah 35. Isaiah 35, verse 8. Verse 8, yeah. Now, just for the sake of love and bubbles, context is key. Look at verse 1. The desert and dry land will be glad, and the Arabah will rejoice and blossom like the lily. It will burst into flower, will rejoice. With joy and singing will be given the glory of Lebanon and the splendor of the Carmel. They will see the glory of Adonai and the splendor of our God. In the desert. Isn't that an interesting thing? Didn't we discuss the way, the truth, and the life on Shabbat? And the way is Torah. And when God led them according to his instruction, they walked through the wilderness. Right? Strengthen your drooping arms and steady your tottering knees. Say to the faint-hearted, be strong and unafraid. Here is your God. He will come with vengeance. With God's retribution, he will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind will be opened and the ears of the deaf will be unstopped. Who does that sound like? Interactive. The eyes of the blind will be opened and the ears of the deaf will be unblocked. Isn't that what Messiah did? Hello? Then the lame man will leap like a deer, the lame will walk, the mute's tongue will sing, they can now speak. For in the desert springs will burst forth, streams of water in the Arava. The sandy mirage will become a pool, the thirsty ground springs of water. Did he not say, anyone who is thirsty, come and drink with me? He was talking about the Ruach. It's going to overflow upon all creation. A marsh filled with reeds and papyri. Here's where we need to get to. A highway will be there, a way called the way of holiness. Through the desert there will be a road. A way of holiness. Listen to its description. The unclean will not pass over it, but it will be there for those whom he guides. Fools will not stray along it. No lion or other beast of prey will be there traveling on it. They will not be found there, but the redeemed will go there. You're redeemed by the blood of? Those ransomed by Adonai will return and come with singing to Zion. On their heads will be everlasting joy. They will acquire gladness and joy, while sorrow and sighing will flee. Isn't that a beautiful thing? He said he came to establish this, and he talks about this highway of holiness. This is a path where he walks, where he guides, where he will protect. No lion or beast will be there. No person who is not of him will be there. And the redeemed will be there. And it will be a place of setting captives free. So, if you understand you're redeemed, and he says, come up, my children, I've got a special place for you. It's this way we're walking. And we don't have to go far to see some interesting links. So the way or the gate, this narrow gate that he talks about, Isaiah 35, verse 8, right? Right, okay. And he also talks about this gate. The word for gate is delet. And what is the delet? Go back and look at your notes. It's the fourth commandment. Shabbat. Shabbat. It is the way of holiness. It's about the sign. Uh-huh. And he wants to establish you, but you will walk in his ways. Redeemed with renewing of the mind, renewing of the spirit, to be able to come into the place where you understand spirit and truth, where you have the Holy Spirit and you have Torah, and you're walking along this path, understanding his covenants, understanding his kingdom, understanding his ways. It is there for you. One day when you're in this time, you have to take up your cross, right? You have to let go of everything, for lack of a better word. Let go of everything. Jody, what's the biggest thing you love? Normal worldly thing. Sport, right? Vanessa, music.
And voice,
Margie,
My friends,
friends. Sorry, friends. Sorry. Sport, Bruce.
Wife and kiddies.
Cats.
children.
Children.
Netflix.
Netflix. You're like, oh, that's a good one.
Remote control.
How many of you have had that moment where you've had to let go of that thing and you've had to choose between God and the thing?
Yes.
Stick up your hands. All right. How many of you love it when he does that?
Not so much.
No.
Okay, you're my people. No, I don't love it. No, I do love it. No, I don't love it. It's normally this love-hate problem that we have. And that's why we get our fingers caught in the door. Because he's closing the door and he's saying, let go, and you go, "Mm-mm." What do you think it means to take up your cross and follow?
And now your wants your thoughts, your desires.
Lay down yourself.
Mhm.
It's about letting go. It's about letting go of everything, and you have a choice to make. And you have to, it's not that God doesn't want you to have sports or have significant others or have time where you can sit and relax and watch something wholesome, hopefully, and you spend time with your family and spend time with doing those things. Those are gifts. But at the same time, there is a point where you have to surrender everything and make sure that that very thing that you're holding on to does not occupy the throne room of God. When do I know something like that has taken its place? Right. There's a general key thing here. Something that I've learned. If God looks at you and he says, I need you to open up your hand and give it to me, can you trust him enough, or are you going to snatch onto it and hold it away from him because you don't trust him? If he says, will you surrender that to me? And if it is good, I'll give it back. If it is not, I'll take it away. Would you? Well, yeah, how many times did you have to smack your hand to get you to say yes so quickly? Take it. The whole point is, those very things could be the very things that are holding you back. If I'm getting to the place where the thing or the person has more influence on my life than God has on my life, it is becoming a problem. Listen very carefully at that. If you put something else on the throne instead of God, he will remove it permanently. Don't play that game. He is a jealous God. Has he not said so?
Yes.
This is not a tug of war competition.
He comes first.
He has to, and because he is your creator. Now that doesn't mean he doesn't want you to have good things. He said, just ask, I give good gifts, but how do I know that if I give you what you seek, you are going to use it for my glory?
He gives you a little first.
Sometimes he's going to test you. And if the fruit is fraught, he's going to take it. It is a very, very difficult thing to learn, but trust me, it is a necessary one, because if we don't get this wrapped around our heads, will we be on that highway of holiness? Because something might say no, and I will go, yeah, but hang on, they have a point. No, but I can't take my Netflix with me in this desert walk. No, my friends don't want to come with me. No, my family says no way. No, my sport won't allow me. Where's the tennis court? In the desert. No tennis court, Jordan. And then I go, he doesn't even look at me, don't make eye contact. Now you go through this whole process of, can I be godly and still do these things? And the answer for most part is yes, but he wants to check whether or not you're going to surrender the most beautiful, or the things you hold most dear, and lift them up and say, Abba, they're yours. Because if you give it back, I know it's a good thing. If you don't, can I say, praise you, Father, for removing?
Amen.
You should be able to, because that thing's going to get a virtue later, or it's going to be a stumbling block for you, or that thing that you prayed when you plugged into the water. Remind me again. I want the Garden of Eden, but what happens if there's no tennis courts in the Garden of Eden, Jordan? What am I going to do? If you build it. This is not Wimbledon, man. Wrong island. Can I be content enough with what you know of God that you will be satisfied, because He is the thing that satisfies you above all else? It is a lesson we need to get ingrained in us. It is the door, it is the way, and we need to be careful, because if I'm walking on a straight line, and there's my point of perfection, and I'm here. If this is an increase in time, let's do this. Let's make the dot fairly big. This is me. That's out. I'm going to seek righteousness. And I'm on this path. Okay? What's going to happen if I say, yes, but where does my cookie go? Slightly down or slightly to the left? If I start making compromises and start putting other things in place of God, eventually, if I carry on my trajectory, how close am I to the highway now? How many of you have gotten in a car and went driving in a direction thinking you have a general idea, or have ever hit a golf club at a pin and realize you got your swing slightly wrong, and then you find out you had to go look for the ball in the trees instead of the fairway? It is the little increments that we have to be very careful of, but God is gracious enough to give us little corrections, so that when we're running and we see, oh, Netflix, and God's like, give me Netflix, and you're like, okay, I'm back. Oh, I really like tennis. Oh, give me tennis, okay, I'm back. Oh, my friends are telling me, oh, no, my family's doing this, no, I'm doing that, oh, where am I going? And eventually he's saying, listen, if you don't trust me, how are you going to end up in a place where you don't even know where it is? How am I going to get Vanessa to the Garden of Eden? I can tell you now, I don't have the directions. Daddy doesn't have the directions. Mommy doesn't have the directions. Jordan is too busy playing tennis to have directions. How am I going to get you home? And the only way is if you press into where God is and able to help you, correct you, and that you trust Him enough so that when I'm on this walk, those little corrections are going to get me. How many of you have had those little corrections before? How many of you, after you were corrected, okay, let me say it this way. How many of you liked it when you were getting corrected? All right, that's a good percentage. If you stuck up your hand there, that's probably telling you like. How many of you liked it afterwards? Not even a little. If He did not correct you, where would you be? No, you would definitely not be here. Where would you be? Would we be talking about the highway of holiness, or would we be talking about the AC/DC lyric? Yeah, it's amazing how many people sing that song, and I sit there and I think, do you realize what you're saying? Yeah.
The
And suddenly,
culture.
oh no, we get in there, we're like, yo, this is awesome, until you realize what it means from God's point of view.
But Jesus.
Yeah. If we understand Isaiah 35, we wouldn't be so quick. All right, so remember, we've given direction, and he says we have to go through that narrow gate. Listen to what he said in 14. But the narrow gate and the hard road. Do you guys have a different translation? Verse 14, narrow gate and a hard road that leads to life. What do you have? Narrow gate and hard road. Yeah, you too. I'm going to separate
I
it.
feel like we skipped the broad gate. Did we skip the broad
No, I
gate?
read the word gate.
Oh,
He said the narrow gate and the hard road that leads to life. Guys, this is a promise. It's not going to be easy. God said you're going to stumble. But he says you won't stumble as someone who falls because he's got you. You might stumble, that means you're going to slow down a little bit. You might not be running at the same pace the whole time, but he's got you and he's going to keep you going. When he says, cling to me, I'm going to get you.
The other translation would read that it's a road of difficulty.
A road of difficulty. He said, count the cost of discipleship, guys. Pick up your cross daily.
Use your last part.
Right. If God is God, and you said he is God because you decided to climb into water, you decided to give your life to him, you decided that fact, then let him steer. Trust him enough that he loved you to get you through that moment in your life where you were living for you and you got into the water, that he understands what good gift it is. It's not going to be easy. It's a life of refinement. And thank God for it. None of us have arrived. Guys, the more I think I know, the more I realize I don't know. You know, I've had probably about 3 or 4 moments in my life when I've sat teaching. And that took a lot for me to get to the first moment of going, yeah, now we're getting it down. Now we're teaching Abba. Now you're flowing really nicely. Until he picks me up to the next step. And I went, yo, I didn't know what he was talking about. Now we're teaching. And then look, to the next step. I cannot honestly remember what I can. I can think back to what I sounded like in the beginning and where I am now, and I don't recognize that person. That person was saved. That person understood. That person had a relationship with the Ruach, and even now I'm still growing. Thank Allah for that. Even now he's working with me. Even now he's showing me stuff about myself that I need to fix. Even now I'm lifting up and I'm pulling out things that I'd never thought were a problem. Things that I thought, no, man, I'm not like that. And then you stop and you think about it and you're like, okay, now that I really think about it, I am like that. But I would never have said it. And he's going, well, my boy, this is a problem. What are you going to do about it? But you know my heart. This piece of me is broken. Take it away and blow new life. Fix it. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to get this wrong. I want to reflect Messiah in every step of the way, and I'm trusting you that you will get me to that point. That's my why. Why do you keep going? Because I haven't arrived. I have not done the miracles that Messiah said I would. I have not taught the way he taught. I have not set the captives free the way he has. I have not understood the kingdom the way he has. So I'm going to keep on pursuing and going to keep on asking him to get it done. And when I finally get it right, ask him, Father, let me go out and do what I need to do. These people need to see you. And when we're busy doing that, how many people can you save, Abba? How many people are you going to get in the kingdom because you got it right in me? I cannot do this. It's a fine line. We're walking a tightrope. But it's the door. He is the door. So every step is going to be behind him because with him, there's life. I don't get to throw my toys. I don't get to tell him he doesn't know what he's doing. I don't get to hold people hostage or ransom. I don't get to hold my Netflix or my sport or my family back anymore. I gave that to him. And I'm going to drag him with me. And I'm going to ask when my wife is not where she should be, because she's stumbling or whatever. I'm using an example. I'm going to say, Abba, you need to deal with her, build her, help her, guide her, get her to where she needs to be so she can grow too. Never mind for the prayers that the people have offered up in this flock. How many tears have been poured out because the people don't see how important they are to God. We need to get on this path and we need to walk together. He goes on from there, talking about paths, and he says, beware of false prophets. Why would I make that name? What's a false prophet going to do? Is he going to cause me to walk on the path or cause me to stumble along the path? It's probably going to either pull me away or stumble. So be careful for what you want to hear versus what God is actually telling you. Right? We all want good news. We all want what we want. And we all want Abba to jump when we ask him to. But the simple fact of the matter is, if it's not good for me, it's not going to do it. Simple fact of the matter is, he says, when I decide, it will happen. You don't get to tell God what to do. That's why he's God and you're not. You get to listen. And you get to trust. And you get to hold on. He says, beware of false prophets. Now, for your own reading, Deuteronomy 13 is a fantastic little thing that you need to mark down. It is how we test them. It says if they say something is from God and they don't come true, don't listen to them. It says even if they perform signs and wonders and they tell you to go follow something else, don't trust them. So, if something pulls me away, don't trust it. They came to you wearing sheep's clothing, but underneath they are hungry wolves. You will recognize them by their fruit. And he goes on to describe, can a people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Isn't it interesting? Why does he think he uses grapes and figs? What do grapes represent?
Grapes, so the fruit of the vine, right? So it's the blood.
Okay. He also biblically talks about joy, abundance, right? But you hit something on there. I'm the vine, you're the
Wrong.
you can do nothing without me. The vine and the branch will give you fruit. Without Yeshua, you will have no grapes. You will have no fruit. You will have no joy. You will have no covenant. This is the blood of the covenant. Figs. Fig tree, first mention. Genesis. They made their first set of clothes out of fig leaves. But funny enough, we find, what was it, Nathaniel sitting underneath a fig tree? Why would he be sitting underneath a fig tree? You know, well, it's bushy, it's hard, but there's something else. When you walk underneath a fig tree, something that's nothing developed, they say you should know this. What is it about the fig tree? Think of Talmud.
It's well, it smells nice.
Right.
Also, it's
Don't worry about the rest. There's a sweet smell. People studied on it because it was covering and it was sweet. Okay? May your words be as sweet as honey to my lips. So sweetness talks about Torah. And we have this continual parallel. We have the way Adam and Eve did it, and we have the way God does it. I'm going to cover up my own shame using fig leaves. He says, what you did causes death. You need atonement. You need an animal to cover you. You need someone's blood to atone for your mistakes. It's Yeshua again, isn't it? You see, a fig leaf is only going to get you so far. How many of you think if I ran around in fig leaves, it would cover me for about 5 minutes before it started to get embarrassing? Right. But if I had leather clothing, it's lasting longer. So how much more than the eternal blood of Yeshua himself? And it's about the Garden of Eden. It's about getting us back into the fullness of his creation. It's about getting us home. All right? So he says, you will look at these guys. They will look to you like Christians. They will look to you like believers. They will look devout. But inside, there's something wrong. How do I define, okay, besides what they eat? Okay, well, let's start there. Let's start with obvious. Sheep eat grass. Good sheep. Wolves eat sheep. They eat flesh. So something that devours people. Have you ever been around someone that they're so busy that by the time they finish with that person, there's very little to pick up on the other end? Is that a sheep or a wolf? Right. So you will have ministers, sadly enough. You will have false prophets. You will have people that will look like they're following Messiah, but in the fact it's about self because they are hungry. A prophet, a teacher, anybody in God's kingdom, are they about themselves or they're about God? They need to be God-centered, not self-centered. It cannot be how you feel. It's how it makes him feel. It cannot be my perception, but God's perception. It cannot be about my kingdom, but it's about his kingdom. Truly then, I will be raised up as a shepherd, entrusted to look after the flock. But if the Lord is my shepherd, I will trust and listen for his voice, yes? Not my own. Wolves, well, generally flocks move together, right? Even if they're not in a straight line, they generally walk in the same direction. How do wolves? When they move, they move, but let's say sheep eating, straight lines. When wolves get into a hunting formation and they start to hunt, how do they pick their targets? Right, they separate people. Isolation is a problem. Because even a lion will pick the weakest among you. If you're having a difficult time, expect Hasatan to pitch up. Who's protecting you against them? Only the shepherd. Okay? So we need to understand that there's separation sometimes. That if we take the time and we look at their fruit and we start to examine it, I will then be able to decide whether I'm looking at a sheep or whether I'm looking at something that's going to separate. Bruce?
This reminds me of Job with, as the tongue comes before God, it says, Job's not going to, you've got a hedge protection around you. And because of that, there's no bad coming to him.
Right.
So it just shows that if you follow God and you've got him as your protector, he's got that edge around you.
Yeah, like David, right? David who fought with lion and bear to protect the sheep. How many of you would have seen a lion and said, oh, he was a good sheep? But don't worry, we still got 10 more. Let's move quickly along. But he doesn't. At such a young age, he knows that he needs to risk his life because his father's livelihood depends on how many sheep we have. It's about his kingdom. I belong to that kingdom, so it becomes my priority. Okay? So we need to look at people. Is there a unity? Is there a God-centeredness? Is it about separation? Well, if you don't want to listen to me, I'll take 2 or 3 other people and they will listen to me, but you're obviously in denial. I don't know how many times I've heard this in the Hebraic roots thing, but if you disagree with someone about a biblical truth, they will use things and say things like, well, you don't understand, you're obviously not the remnant. So they kind of make you feel like you're missing it completely. But maybe it's the very reason that you don't understand it is because you know the difference between God's voice and theirs. A lot of these people are so focused on self that they find it difficult to find God in anything. You need to be careful. Stay on the path.
Or they find God only in their perception.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they start to push that perception down. We've had one or two discussions with highly intellectual people and know a lot about God, but sadly display very little of Him. And when you're having a discussion, they don't talk to you, they talk at you. You ever felt like that? They don't want to listen to a single thing you have to say. They just want to ram down their ideas. Right? Be careful. Because that's how they batter you down normally to get you to a point where you just think, because of the sheer volume of their words and the way they speak with such authority, they obviously know something you don't. Listen to me. God is the authority, not man. If it doesn't square up with the word, if you don't see it in the word, then they're getting it from somewhere else. Go, sit, pray. And if they don't like that, it's generally because there's lamb chops sticking out the side of their jaws. Okay. Verse 21. Not everyone who says to me, oh, this is a biggie. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Only those who do what my Father in heaven wants. Okay. So, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord. Now, why does he use that? I don't mind. Let him describe this for you while you're thinking about it. He says, on that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not expel demons in your name? Listen to me. Prophecy, expel demons, people who performed miracles. Okay, and prophets you can test. Didn't we perform many miracles in your name? Then I will tell them to their faces, I never knew you. Here's your indicator. Get away from me, you walkers of lawlessness. Lawlessness, the word for lawlessness there in the Greek is anomia, which means absence of law, absence of Torah. Okay, you've done miraculous things, you've done signs and you've done wonders, and you even come up in your name. There's a beautiful sort of idea of this in Acts where these two guys, Nick can correct me, I forget their names, but they were sort of Sanhedrin type of guys, and they came up and they were casting out demons in this Yeshua who Paul preaches. Until eventually they came up against the guy who was really demon possessed. Sons of Sceva, thank you. And he says, the demon looks at them and he says, Yeshua I know, Paul I've heard of, but you, who are you? And that's when they started going. It says that demon in that guy tore off their clothes and beat them badly, but they ran away naked. Now remember, running, showing more than my ankle, and be completely shamed. This is now utter embarrassment for a God-fearing man. Just because you understand that he is Adonai, and you say what? The demons know he is the Lord. What makes you different from them? What does it mean to know him?
Have a relationship intimately.
Right. There's a difference between knowing about God and knowing him. I've used this example before. Pick a popular person. Who of you like soccer? Portia, help me. Neymar. That's your guy, right? How many facts do you know about Neymar? All right. But do you know him? Right? You don't know what his fears are. You don't know what his deepest desires are. You don't know what his favorite color is. Do you? Right. So would it be fair to say, even though Portia's a massive fan of Neymar, and she thinks he's kind of cute, that she knows about him, but she doesn't really know him? Now, if we're talking about the intimacy that he uses that word da'at, he says Adam and Eve knew each other. Now, he's not just talking about the physical stuff, he's talking about them really, that deep connection that comes with marriage. That they get to know the ins and outs of each other, like what they're afraid of, who they are, what they want to do when they grow up. I still don't know. And all of those things. And you go through this process and you get to know them, but you also get to see them live it out, because sometimes they say one thing and they show you something completely different. And you can tell immediately whether that person is truthful or not. Remember, truth and love go together. John? So we have to go in and we have to really get to know this person. And do you think that takes time? Does any relationship like that take effort on your part? Right? Does that take investment? Right. And when we continue to pursue that and hold on to that and say this above everyone and anything else. Okay, for those of you who have been married or are married, let me say that, who are married. Has your relationship changed over the last, how long have you been married now? 8 years. Okay, so let's use 5 years as a guide. Hey, you've also been married longer than 5 years. I'm trying to stuck with that. This is like you guys are so cute. You're still new with this. All right, so Uncle I will know better than all of us. But if you take 5 years, in the last 5 years, has it been difficult but rewarding in the fact that you've had to grow together as a couple? Right? Bruce?
Yep.
Okay? Uncle Al, let's use 15 minutes.
34.
This man deserves a round of applause.
Just get my head.
All right? Over the last 20 years, have you two both changed as individuals?
Yes.
Right. And as you do, have you had to find common ground as you have grown? Okay? Now, if that is our guideline for knowledge of someone, and would you say the longer you get to know them, the more in tune you are with them? Can the married men agree with that? Right? You have something to add to that? No? Okay. So when you go through that process of really getting to the grips of him and understanding him fully, that I would be able to understand my wife at a look. I understand her behavior sometimes before she understands her behaviors. I understand her and she understands me, but that takes constant communication of this is where I am right now and this is what I'm trying to deal with. Help me, partner with me, work with me. And as we grow together, let me promise you something, kiddies. As soon as you do that in the beginning, it's difficult enough because it's literally two separate people and God has to go, no more I, now it's we. Your money doesn't exist. Our money. Your house, our house. Okay? It is not your car, it's our car. It is not your future, it's our future. It is not your choice, it's our choice. And you put kids in the midst of that, then you're not responsible just for 2, you're responsible for 3 or more. And then you have to take their feelings, their emotions, their understandings, their hurts, and as parents go to God and say, Abba, we need to walk on this highway. We need to all get home. And as we grow together, I can understand when my son is not happy just by the way he pulls his face. Why? Because I spend a lot of time looking at that kid's face. And I can see it to the point where he might not know he's frustrated. And I can say, my boy, you want to talk? I can look at my wife and I can see she's tired before she says it. I can look at my daughter and see the little lip part when she said. A father should know. Now, if I can get that in tune with the people around me, how much more so, I'm on such a deeper level with the Holy Spirit as my guide, how much more so is it with God? It is not just a declaration. Calling him Lord does not get you saved. Living as if he is, that gets you saved. And if God is God and you are not, then let him be God. Follow his mitzvot. Follow his instructions. There is life in them. But he doesn't just say that for no reason. Yeshua said, I did not come to take that away. I came to establish it. You want to follow life? Let's walk in the highway of holiness. What's holiness? What's holy? So his Torah is holy. So you have a choice. You can either be holy or you can be common. You can either be with him or you cannot be. This relationship is a day in, day out choice. And he says, you people, you did stuff in my name, but you don't even talk to me. You want all the outward show, but you have nothing of the inward relationship. He says, where were you? When was the last time you spoke to me? When was the last time you read my word? When was the last time you sat down and we had a discussion? No, but I went to church and I always sit. That's a nice thing, huh? If this is not a heart expression, it means nothing. To love God. Married people, why do you put on your wedding ring every day? Come on, why do you do it?
Sign of the covenant.
Sign of the covenant. You belong to him. You belong to someone. You belong. It's Shabbat. Are there times, now be honest, that your things are not going well in the house, but yet you don't even hesitate to put on your wedding ring? No relationship is going to go without waters of difficulty. You're going to grow together, and sometimes you're going to have to rub up against each other to get to the commonality, and God will use that. There's a little practice I like to do, and sometimes I remember, well, most of the times I remember, but sometimes I don't. So before I put my ring on, now some guys will do this when they wake up. Before they open up their eyes, they will just go, thank you, Abba, that I'm here. Before my feet hit the ground, they would have a whole prayer session. Eyes closed, Abba, show me what I need to do today. Show me what I'm dealing with. Am I doing okay with acting as a spouse? Am I doing okay acting as a parent? Is there anything I need to fix up? Is there anything you need to tell me so that I can address it? But before I put this ring on, no, it's not just habit. Now it feels weird when you don't. When you first put it on, it feels weird that it's there. But when you put the ring on, can I say, Baruch Hashem, I have the privilege of being married. And when I put it on, it's a reminder of my commitment to my spouse. That I belong to her and she belongs to me. So what do I do when I put on my tzitzit? You think you just say, you mumble a couple of brachot and you say, oh, blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, command us to put on tzitzit. That's not spinach. What does that mean if your heart condition doesn't change every time you put it on? If these are ornaments for you, then there's something wrong. This is my sign to the world that I belong to him and him alone. This is my highway of holiness. This is about Kiddushim. This is about me belonging to him. Let no one say I don't wear a crown. What is this? Well, you think it's a fashion symbol. You don't understand me. You don't understand my God. Are you wearing it to earn salvation? You don't understand me. You don't understand my God. Well, what is it then? It's so that I remember to keep his Torah and always stay in line, because I want to honor him with everything that I do. Never mind the fact that my rabbi wore it and I want to be like him, so Do not get into the space where you do things out of habit, do things when you check your heart condition, man, because otherwise it becomes a thing and not something you desire. You forget your why. Why am I married? Why did I walk down that aisle? Why did I make that choice to climb in that water? Why am I pursuing discipleship today? Why am I teaching? Check your heart, because it's going to lead you down a path, and if you don't get correction, you're going to end up in some place you don't want to be. And you're not even going to know how you got there. Do we ever want to hear that? What do we want to hear when we get home? Well done, good and faithful servant. And if, with that expectation, do we ever want to hear, get away from me, I never knew you? Now ask yourself, are you holding yourself back? Follow the narrow way. You guys still okay? We finish this? So everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a sensible man who built his house on the rock. Funny enough, that word rock is Petros, Peter. The rain fell and the rivers flooded and the winds blew and they beat against the house, but it didn't collapse because its foundation was on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a stupid man who put his house on the sand. The rain fell, the rivers flooded, the winds blew and beat against the house, and it collapsed, and its collapse was horrendous. Now, this is something interesting. In Israel, you don't just find sand anywhere. Okay? Two things we need to take from this. Number one, the rain, the flood, and the wind is standard. Your house will be tested. Make sure your foundations are secure. Where do I find sand? Come, Captain Israel. In the? No, don't. Give me the Hebrew term. What? It's a gay. A wadi, right. So when you go to the desert, you will see in the Judean wilderness and those things, you don't see, it's not like the Namibian sand deserts, right? These are rock cliff faces. And when you see these rock faces, you will see actually within them, if you go just March, April, you'll see that there are certain sections that are lighter in color than the others. And you will be able to see exactly where the river runs. Because the water collects, it hits a wadi, and it goes. Remember I said that one of the most dangerous things you can do in Israel is go hiking during the rainy season. Flash floods happen all the time. They cover the whole highway. People have to be airlifted out of towns. All right? You cannot even drive over that. And all of that collection, all that wadi puts a fine sand in those riverbeds. So to say this to a Middle Eastern man is to say, you didn't build your house on the rock, you built it at the bottom of a wadi? Are you crazy? Did you not know the rainy season's coming? Did you not think you were ever going to get tested? Did you think it was just going to stop raining? Did you think that Father would not refine you? Didn't he say count the cost of discipleship? Didn't he say troubles will come? Persecution will come? Didn't he say the enemy is going to come after you? So what are you trusting in? I'm trusting in you, Lord. Tell me what to do. Whoever listens, whoever hears these words of mine and acts on them, don't just hear them, do them. This is not some little test that you get to you skim through. This is not. Let me say this nicely. This is not grade school. School has its place, but there's stuff you're going to learn and you're going to forget about, and you're not going to care when you leave. Everything that God gives you here is for your life, for your good, for your future family's blessing. If you don't get it now, it's going to cost people later. It's going to cost you. Those storms are coming. God's telling you it's going to happen, and you need to be prepared. Where is your house standing? Let me take it back. Is it at your friend's house? Is it on the tennis court? Is it in front of the TV? Is it at the back end of the families? Or are you trusting in your rock and your fortress that is God? If we really wanted to take the time, there was a declaration that Peter says much later. Ata Mashiach El, you are the Messiah God. And he says, your name will no longer be called Kepha, it will be called Petros. Because on this rock I will build my church, on the foundations of what Yeshua is, and he said, on the foundations of Torah, I will build my house. Why? Because God said it gives life, and it does not change. It's not shifting like sand. So can I talk around and say, oh, well, Allah's changed his mind, I don't have to worry about this stuff anymore? Absolutely not. It is as applicable today as it was written then. It is your foundation. It is the thing that holds you together, because God is the very thing that holds you together. If you forget that, when the storm comes, how many of you have seen believers that have been very quick to shoot up and amen and God praised us and fantastic, and then when they hit their first storm, they sound very much like they were unbelievers, or they sound very much like they were just before they were saved, sometimes even worse. How many believers have gone through storm after storm, storm after storm, storm after storm, and eventually they just go, no, this sucks. Then there was a guy in the news not too long ago, a Hillsong worship leader that wants to renounce his faith. Hillsong. He says, no, this is too difficult, I'm out. What's your foundation? You didn't get what you want? You got hurt? Someone said nasty things to you? You forget the reason you were made in the first place? Did God change? Is he no longer the creator? Is Torah changed? Does that no longer apply? No, sadly enough, it becomes more about us than anything else. He said that's when your house will collapse. When Yeshua had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at the way he taught. For he was not instructing them like the Torah teachers, but as one who had authority himself. It's a very interesting thing. When you study some of the Mishnah writings, you'll hear one rabbi argue with another rabbi. I think it's actually in the Talmud that you'll have two rabbis arguing about which shoe to put on first in the morning. And one rabbi will say, your left foot. Another guy says, don't be ridiculous, you put your right shoe on first because it's your strong side. So therefore you need to walk out powerfully. And another rabbi will say it doesn't really matter. And you will have continual debates between the rabbis about what is good, what is not, and they'll have differing opinions. Sounds very much like Christianity today, doesn't it? You don't need a Shabbat, you need a Shabbat principle. Yeshua is our Shabbat. Don't worry about the Shabbat, it's all been abolished. We can't agree on anything. We don't have a foundation. But anyway, they go back and forth like this, chapters and chapters and chapters about stuff that you sit there and you think, really? You want to argue about shoes? They don't even argue much about whether Shabbat is a principle or not. They know it's Torah, so therefore it is. They will sit down and they will argue about that, and Yeshua is saying, He says, when I'm telling you it's going to happen like this, trust me, it's going to happen. When I tell you to do this and this and this, you better do it, or else there's going to be problems for you. When I tell you to take stock and check this highway that you need to get on, this highway to holiness, this narrow path, this long, hard road, don't let anybody else pull you off. Don't let anything pull you back. Don't stumble. Cling to Him. Please, for the love of God, hold on to Him so that you can get to your destination. He goes through this entire thing. Can you imagine trying to process this as He spoke it, as one complete sermon? And He just sat there. I mean, it's taken us, what, 3 weeks? 4 sessions maybe? 3 sessions? And He sat there and He said all of this. And they looked at Him and they marveled. Now, at that, I'm going to charge you a little bit. I want you to go and read this. 5, 6, and 7. in its fullness with the understanding you know now, before we get to chapter 8. And I want you to decide. You're either going to listen to him or you're not. But remember the warnings he gives you. God is never wrong. If you choose not to listen and act, if you choose your kingdom over his, if you choose to put something else on his throne, he's telling you now your house is not filled. Please do me a favor. Take the time now when you have peace, instead of trying to do this under fire. If he's going to send us out one day, you don't have time to figure this out now. You don't have time to figure it out while you're still busy, while you're teaching others. You have time now. Get your foundation strong. Get your house built properly so that when those things come, your house will stand. Amen? All right. Great time is happy time. Can I switch this thing up?
Such friends met a quick as not.
I mean, coffee into my hands.
Maybe.
No, not bring it. Brisbane.
Lord, we come before you tonight, I just want to thank you for this time that we spend with you. Just to understand, Yeshua, your words that you've spoken, how you've been able to guide us and how you've been able to show us, and the words that we need to take to heart. Father, I ask that you give us the time during the course of this week to just sit down and have time with you to go over this and to chew on this and to understand and for it to sink into our souls and into our beings so that we can actually use it. But as we've seen, we need to see that we need to make you the king on the throne, and that we don't put our things there, Father, but other that we have you there. And if there is something else, we ask that you show us, and that you help us, and that you help us to remove it so that we can keep you there. Father, when we're going through difficult times, I ask that you show us what it is that we need to fix in our lives so that you can move us to the next stage. There's so many times that we think we're being persecuted because you don't love us, but it's because you love us, because you're refining us, because you want us to grow and become closer to you, that you're taking us through that. And I just ask that you help us with that. Guide us through it and not take us out of it. Thank you for the time together. We thank you for the love and this fellowship. And I ask that you be with everyone here and those who weren't able to make it. Keep them safe this week. In your precious name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Go.
Apart from what